All right. Thank you everybody for tuning in. I am pleased to be joined here with two chairmen in the Republican Party. We've got Chairman Tim Hazelo from Island County, and we've got Chairman Dave McMullen from Pierce County. Um, we are going to be discussing the upcoming convention for the Republican Party, and we're going to be able to get ideas from the perspectives of people who, we're on the same team, but maybe we don't support the same people for governor right now, but we're all going to come in and unite behind somebody later. But we're going to have different perspectives here. Thank you both for coming on.
Thanks. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. So I'm going to start by asking the question, and the first one will be, it'll be for both of you, but we'll start with Tim. So Tim, we've got the convention coming up, right? The Republican convention's coming up real soon. We're going to be talking about endorsements, and we're going to be endorsing a lot of candidates, or voting to endorse a lot of candidates. So that's going to be. Are you talking to somebody?
Somebody's knocking on my window.
Oh, geez, that's hilarious.
All right, now. I'm on the road, you guys. I'm in a gas
station. That's all right. I just want to make sure we weren't interrupting. But we've got a convention coming up, and we're going to be voting on endorsements for multiple candidates. And so the biggest one that's on everybody's mind is the governor's race. So I'll ask you first, have you guys been informed of exactly how that looks and how many votes are needed in order to secure sole endorsement? Tim?
Well, I'm waiting for the final rules to come out. I know the rules committee should be meeting here in the next week or so. I think Dave he's a little closer to home base down there, so he might have a little bit more information on that than I do. So it'll be interesting to see what it is. But I would wager to say that it's definitely got to be a majority, more than 50+1, like a 60%, maybe even a super majority, to just get out a flat endorsement to a candidate. I mean, to give a candidate a 50+1 endorsement is not much of an endorsement, is it? I mean, if I were a candidate and I got a 50+1 endorsement, I don't know if I'd even want that endorsement at that point in time. That would tell me that, geez, man, I am I'm not quite where I need to be to win a race. So hopefully that's the way it's going to work out. We'll have to wait and see. Once again, I'm waiting on the final rules to come out, so I don't want to misspeak. I don't know, Dave, do you have more information?
Yeah. That's the way I understand it. It looks like it needs to be like 60% to get a flat out endorsement. Otherwise, they can dual endorse if they want to. We'll just have to see how it goes. There's a lot of races there that I don't even think there's anyone that's going to be qualified to be endorsed, period. It's all coming out. We'll just have to see, because there will be people breaking out into congressional sessions and other things. So it's all new. It's all absolutely anything goes at this point.
Yeah. So the first thing we're going to do is break out into congressional groups, and so you and me, Tim, would be in Congressional District 2. Dave, which one are you in?
We have candidates in the 8th, 10th, 6th.
Yeah.
Carmen Gore's in the 8th. We've got a couple of candidates, Narav Sheth and Jay Fratt in the 10th. Mm-hmm. And then Drew McMullan so far is the only candidate running in the 6th. I do expect Carmen and, at least on the Pierce County side, I do expect Carmen to get the nod. And we'll see with Jay and Narav. Both of them are fairly new to the scene, and I haven't really gotten a feel as to which one of them is going to get the heads up, if either one of them does. Drew McMullan, he's senator in the 35th and pretty well known there, and I don't see any other opponent, so he'll probably get the nod there.
Okay. And I think so far, I know we've got other candidates. I just haven't met them. I think in the 2nd, I think we only have Leif Johnson right now that's really been putting himself out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To dovetail on that real quick, what Dave said about this is all new. I think your viewers need to know that this is the first time, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, you've been around longer than I have, but this is the first time the Washington State Republican Party has done any type of an early endorsement on a convention type status where it's multiple candidates. And so this is definitely a learning experience. This is something that we're going to have to figure out, and it's going to be shaky, and we're going to make some mistakes. But with this jungle primary, this is definitely the way that we have to go moving forward, and this is our trial run at it.
All right, so this is the Washington State Republican Party's goal is to prevent what happened, like with the lieutenant governor race in 2020, where we had two Democrats on the ballot.
Is that regardless of the vote, none of the county parties are obligated to follow what the delegates did. It's just the delegates. There was just a simple change for the state committee to make endorsements to the delegates to try to do it a different way. But even back then, in the old style, the county still can do exactly what they want. So if anybody thinks that one or another candidate at any time is going to get the endorsement, and that's that, it's up to the county party to decide what they want to do.
Right. And in the governor's race, Dave Reichert did not sign anything saying that he would step down if he didn't get the endorsement. So he's under no obligation to do so. I believe Semi Bird did. And so we'll see what happens there. I believe right now, as from what I've heard, the rules stand. It's going to be a co-endorsement unless one person gets 60% or more. That could change with the rules committee. It could end up being a supermajority of 66.66667. But right now, it's going to require 60% or more. Now, there's an issue that's going to be coming up with the rules committee and enforcing our own rules, which I think we both agree that we have to enforce our own rules. There's an issue that's coming up with Benton County. Apparently, they got some delegates in late, or they appointed some. What was going on with that, Dave?
I have no verification. I've inquired and checked things out, but from what I understand, only 6 of their delegates actually were submitted on time. And for some reason, Benton County thought that they could appoint open seats or delegate seats to the state convention, which our rules absolutely forbid. So it all submitted. There's a question whether they were submitted on time or after the deadline. And if they're after the deadline, our rules just say that they're not eligible. They can't be seated to vote. The credentials committee is apparently reviewing that. And so there's just kind of a waiting game there. I think it's fair to say that they need to take their time to do that. But, our rules say you have a deadline. 38 other counties did it on time and did it correctly. If one county didn't, it's tough, but the rules are the rules. I mean, what other rules do we break if we don't follow, some serious basic rules state convention?
Well, exactly. And if we don't follow our own rules, I think that could open it up to lawsuits from candidates who didn't get what they want, because they'll be like, oh, well, these delegates were permitted that shouldn't have been permitted. So this entire thing is trash, and that would be really bad for the Washington State Republican Party. So I think it's very important that we do follow our own rules. We're all in agreement, follow the rules.
Yeah. And like Dave said, the credentials committee is working on it right now. I don't know the whole story. I just know some hearsay, and on our chairman's chats, we've talked about this a little bit. And I think pretty much everybody, regardless of which candidate they're in favor of, agrees that the rules are the rules. And just like Dave said, if we give in on this rule for a specific county, then where else are we going to have to give next? And so the rules are the rules. If the credentials committee comes in and says, hey, those delegates weren't submitted in time, or those delegates weren't elected in the fashion that the rules say they have to be elected in, then those delegates don't get seated. And that's going to be up to the state to do that, though.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's not just the governor's race. I know that's the big high profile and
Right.
the hot topic and everything, but it affects the congressional races in that area. It affects everything.
Senate.
Candidacy that's out there. So it has nothing to do with Riker versus Byrd, although it does. It's just the flat out, do we have legitimate delegates voting for these candidates.
Right. And just so we're being honest, because I want to get it out there so that way we can solve it and make sure that nobody is feeling like anything is being withheld. One of the reasons that this is becoming a big issue is because the chairman of Benton County is Semi Bird, if I'm correct.
Yeah,
so Semi Bird,
ironic.
yeah. So the reason that some people and what I'm hearing down here from people who don't know, which is why I'm bringing it up to you guys, and you guys have said it's being investigated. The issue could be, Semi Bird has appointed his own delegates, which will be voting on whether or not to support him for governor, and that is the issue that's being brought up. So a lot of people are confused as to what's going on, what's happening. Now, I expect more information is going to come out as time goes on. But from your guys' understanding, right now there is something that's going on, and it's being investigated by the Credentials Committee. Do they give you an expectation of a turnaround for an answer?
Absolutely, they've been absolutely silent, except for the people that are in the know and are leaking out information. That's why I've been saying I have nothing confirmed. I have had people confirm things privately, but unless you got some kind of documentation or official statement, it's even somebody leaking is not an actual confirmation. But the bottom line is through the whole thing is that we need to hope that we follow our rules, or the whole thing's a farce.
Yeah, and so my concern is the people in the know. We won't name any names, but we should all be hearing about it. There should be an open expectation of what to expect, of what's going on. I think open communication. The fact that two chairmen who are very prominent chairmen, you guys are serving, both of you have served more than one term, right? So you guys have been reelected. You're pretty well established in the party. The fact that you guys aren't included in that conversation surprises me, because I know I'm not included, but I'm not an elected chair. But
to be fair, even though we're county chairman, there is a convention committee, and there's chairs. Right. There is a chair that is heading the credentials committee, and I know, she's going to do what is right. I have no doubt about that. So there's no. I don't feel slighted that as a county chair that I'm lacking certain information, because this convention technically is separate from our state committee. It's more open than a party thing. So I don't have any problems with not having said information. It's just we need to do our due diligence, make sure and get it out there that nothing wrong with putting a little pressure out there, just saying we expect you to do the right thing.
Yeah. And maybe give us an answer also.
The right thing is what needs to happen.
Yeah. So we do expect that we are going to hear closure on this before the convention. We don't want to figure things out the day of, because that's.
I understand that they're meeting and looking over all the credentials of the submitted applications. So I'm sure we'll hear something soon.
Yeah. All right. So coming into the convention, when it comes to endorsements, there's a couple of possibilities. And if I'm focusing on the governor's race too much, it's because it's the most popular one and it is the best example. But there are many races. So one of the possibilities is that they do a co-endorsement. Let's say neither one reaches the level that they need to get a sole endorsement. And they say, we like both candidates. we want you to take a look. And then basically that means we're going to have our regular primary. WSRP is not going to get involved. Is that what that looks like if there's a co-endorsement?
You get a co-endorsement. Bottom line is neither candidate's going to get any money from the WSRP, regardless of there's one endorsement, co-endorsement. The revenue is just not there. And it's not typical that the state party actually gives money. There's been talk out there that if one or the other candidate it opens the door to some significant fundraising from certain groups, and that's absolutely not true. So a co-endorsement won't change anything. A sole endorsement won't change anything. The candidates still are needing to raise their own funds and do their fundraising. And the county parties, especially if it's a co-endorsement, then nothing changes how all different counties have endorsed. It doesn't open the door to the other candidate. Like Pierce County, our bylaws, we can only endorse one candidate per elected office. And once we do that endorsement, We can't give any support, financial or otherwise, to any other candidate running, which is what has created some of the controversy that happened with Pierce County when we did our convention. And, but I have to say, at the exact same time, Clark County was doing their convention. We started at the same time, ended around the same time. And up there, Sammy Bird was speaking, and Dave Reichert was not invited to speak there because they endorsed Sammy Bird. Well, we did the opposite. We endorsed Dave Reichert, and so Sammy Bird wasn't invited. And our reasoning is our bylaws, and I believe that's the reason that Clark County did. Not calling out Clark County. I love Clark County and Matt Bumlow. He's a great chair. I'm just saying, you look at the two, it's like everyone's like, oh my God, you didn't let Sammy Bird participate in your convention. And I'm just like, it's just politics. Go down to Vancouver and the exact same thing. And some other counties that have endorsed Semi. I don't have any problem with that whatsoever. If they're following their bylaws and they did endorse, by all means, they need to support the candidate that they have elected to support. We were just doing the exact same thing. So there's really no controversy. It's just a lot of misunderstanding out there. And let's face it,
I think some of the misunderstanding is people think that we are one party. And while we are one party and we are loosely connected through the WSRP, it's actually 40 different entities. WSRP is its own entity, and then we've got 39 individual counties who have their own bylaws and their own rules. For example, in Island County, we endorsed Semi Bird, but both candidates were invited to speak at our convention.
I can address that a little bit if you want. So
yeah, absolutely.
I remember when we endorsed Semi Bird a while back, and it became a controversy here too, because people are asking me, what are we going to do? So Dave, unlike your bylaws, it's not specific in our bylaws that we can or cannot support another candidate, or that we have to support another candidate once we endorse. It doesn't really address that. And so what I did was I reached out to other counties, and I think you even chimed up when I put it out on the chairman's chat about how do you work your endorsements once you have an endorsement. And so my interpretation at that point in time, since it wasn't specific in our bylaws, was that once we endorse a candidate, then as far as the official correspondence of the Republican Party for Island County, it's that endorsed candidate. And so, boy, there was some pushback from a minority of people that really, really wanted Reichert information included in all the Island County information. But that was my interpretation based on my conversations with other chairmen. And since it wasn't specific in our bylaws, I had to make a call. So I made the call. With that being said, though, like you said, the convention is a different organization. Once that convention is called into order, that's no longer Island County Republican Party. That's the Island County Republican Party convention. Mm-hmm. And that's a whole different set of rules. And so we had both candidates represented at the convention because we didn't have that rule that you have, Dave. And I respect that, by the way, because I'm doing the same thing on the opposite side. So that's pretty important. I would like to touch on what Dave said about financial assistance from the Washington State Republican Party and we're concentrating on the governor candidates. We'll just stay there. I don't know what they're going to do with the Senate candidate.
Anything that we say for the governor when it comes to finances, just consider that to expand to every race.
Kind of applies, yeah. So I do believe the same as Dave. Washington State Republican Party is not going to give these guys massive amounts of money. They might think they are. Some people might think that's going to happen. That's not going to happen. What's going to happen is they're going to be able to say in their literature that they pay for with the money that they raise, if they can raise the money, that the Washington State Republican Party has endorsed me, and that they can use that as a bullet point, and they can use that as a campaign point. So let's go back to the very beginning of the question that you asked Dave about dual endorsements and that. I got to be honest with you. I think that the reason why we decided to do this endorsement convention before May was to winnow this down to a couple of good candidates. So when you look at the governor's race, how many candidates do we have? What do we have? 2 serious candidates?
Yep.
And so
there's like 7 or 8 when you really look at the PDC and stuff. But,
right.
the past we've had races where 5, 6 people jump in, and there's two Democrats, and all of a sudden we just have two Democrats running in the general because of this jungle primary, and there was nothing really we could do about it. So the idea came up to let's run, and kudos to all the people that put this together. They tried really hard, and I think on paper it's an excellent program, but and it was designed, that's why there's the pledge and everything, so that if you didn't get the endorsement, that you would drop out. So we only had like maybe one or two candidates, and we didn't have that mess. Now we got kind of the opposite. I don't think we got enough candidates run into, or enough delegates showing up to the state party. There was a lot of things. I know on January 13th, we had absolutely the worst weather we've had probably in 10 years. And a lot of people statewide, just didn't happen in Pierce County. I had about 60 people that emailed me and just said, we're not coming outside. We're just not showing up, and wanted to know if they could be appointed. And I said, no. Some of them did show up to our convention because even though they couldn't vote, they could still get the delegates to elect them to go to the state. There was that option. So some of them took that option. But the numbers we were hoping for this convention are way down. And a lot of it has to do with that. I think two things. Number one, the whole idea of the convention is to elect delegates to the national convention for president. Donald Trump has just cleaned the floor with his nomination, and and in Washington State, it was the same thing. So he's the presumptive nominee, and basically everyone that's going there is going to be for Trump. So some people consider the cost of going, especially if you live on the west side of the state and you're going to Spokane. There's a lot of people that elected not to go to Spokane because they're like, well, I would do it to at least elect Trump. He's already going, and everyone's tight. This Democrat economy, thank you, Mr. Biden, has scrapped a lot of people financially. So there's just some people that just said there's nothing meaningful because Trump's going, and so they backed out. So it's kind of skewed the potentially turn out. But I think it was a good idea. Hopefully we'll learn from it, and in 4 years we'll do it again, but maybe in a different way. Who knows?
I think it affects the turnout when you don't really have a primary on the presidential level, because it was over quick, and there wasn't a whole lot of question as to who the nominee was going to be, and it was just total domination from the beginning. So we didn't have a whole lot of interest, right? Because we usually, when people show up, it's to support one candidate over another. When there isn't really any competition, it makes it harder to get people to show up.
Yeah,
but
we moved it up to March so that it'd be more meaningful, because we used to do it like in May, and by then it was pretty much decided. So we moved it up to March, and Trump still steamrolled, and there really was nothing to vote. I think only Nikki Haley was still in at that time. All the rest of them had dropped out, and Trump won by a significant margin in this state.
Mm-hmm. And so the primary, for all intents and purposes, is over for the presidential race. That it's going to be Biden v. Trump 2.0. So and in our governor's race, it looks like we've got 4 candidates total that are serious. That's Mendez, Bob Ferguson on the Democrat side, and then we've got Semi Bird and Dave Reichert on the Republican side. And Mendez, I think, is losing steam. So I think we pretty much have Bob Ferguson on the other side. So I like the idea of endorsements early. I know where it came from. I remember the lieutenant governor race when we only had 2 Democrats on the ballot, and then we tried to do a write-in campaign. And Joshua Freed had a good write-in campaign. It was the best one I've ever seen. It was
It happened in the 10th congressional too, so it was affecting Pierce and Thurston County.
Yep.
Marty McClendon jumped in at that time, and a write-in campaign that you actually need more money to run a write-in candidate than, because you got to write in the ballot, so you got to actually get the name out to more people. So it's almost a possible thing to do, but I thought it was awesome that Freed and Marty McClendon stepped up and at least gave us an option,
Yep, and they did, but even still, they only got 17% of the vote, I think, or Joshua Freed got 17% of the vote, and that was as good as it gets. He did everything right. People knew his name. It was an easy name to spell, and he wasn't able to pull it out. So in order for us to get a Republican elected, we have to get a Republican on the ballot. Is pretty much what we discovered.
Right.
Well, in order for us to get a Republican on the ballot, we've got to willow down the primary. So I understand that.
Well, what we have to have is a discussion, though, about what the jungle primary is, what the benefits, if there are any, and the pitfalls of a jungle primary are. I mean, most states, you don't have to be a Republican or a Democrat, and you don't have to be a Republican or a Democrat in Washington State either. But boy, does it help, right? In most states, they go through this primary, and the Republicans elect their person to go down the ballot. The Democrats elect their person to get on the ballot. Anybody else can still be on the ballot. So what we did in Washington, and correct me if I'm wrong, it was I want to say it was in the 2006-ish time frame. We decided that we only wanted to have two choices on the ballot to make it easier for people. I don't believe in making it easier for people. We have to be educated. Right. The populace has to be educated to make choices. So what that did was that isolated us down to, or isolated our choices down to the smarter group is going to have the better chance. And unfortunately, what we've done is because we're so diverse as conservatives and Republicans, because we have so many ideas, and because we're not stuck in our own little echo chamber, we have so many people with so many diverse ideas that are all on the conservative spectrum that we have too many candidates in any given race. And so we eat up those different votes. I'll give you a good for instance. So when I ran in the 2nd congressional district back in 2020, I think there was 7 or 8 people, right? Now, 2 or 3 of them were just nobodies and didn't get nothing. But the reality is I barely beat the 2nd Democrat by 3 or 4% in the primary. Otherwise, there would have been 2 Democrats in the race. And it was because the Republicans, there were 3 or 4 good Republicans, and we split that vote so evenly that it cost us. It almost cost us. Same thing happened with you guys in the 10th, right, Dave? And then we had the lieutenant governor candidate. We had the secretary of state in 22.
Well, you look at that. What happened there is we had like 5 candidates running for the 10th. There was 2 significant Democrats that ran for it, and they took 1st and 2nd. And our top candidate took 3rd, but if you would have took all the votes of all the Republicans that were running, we would have took 2nd place and also would have had a significant chance to compete because our total Republican number was a solid 2nd. And then we'd have something to work on. Instead, we had to do a write-in against Democrats.
Yeah. So one thing that is going to be coming up. So one thing that I want to get people to understand is, though, we're going to have the endorsement. We're going to have the vote. And if somebody gets endorsed, let's say Semi Bird does get endorsed. Okay. Semi Bird is pushing for it. I think he's done a good job of speaking to every county. I think he's been in just about every county, if not every county. If Semi Bird was to get the endorsement, I have heard from some people that, well, that's going to open up the avenue for the Republican National Committee to get involved and donate to him. The Republican National Committee never donates to gubernatorial candidates, so that's not going to happen. And the Washington State Republican Party is going to donate money. That's not going to happen. And for people who think, well, this year is different than every other year that's ever happened, it's not. No, it isn't. Everything is exactly the same as it was. It's not going to happen. Nothing's going to change. Every candidate's going to have to raise their own money. Now, when we get to the general, that might change. The WSRP might get more involved in the general, but maybe not.
Most money that comes into the Washington State Republican Party is donated money and is pretty much passed through to different candidates. That's the main function of any political party, is to raise money for their candidates through different channels. And collect donations. But, right now, the party seems to be in a bit of a disarray, and I don't see any money coming in before the primary that is significant enough where the WSRP would be given any money out. I know Dave Reichert doesn't need it, and he's just going to continue on regardless of what happens at the convention.
All right. Now, if something happens where Dave Reichert does pull out the endorsement, he gets endorsed, do we think that Semi Bird is going to drop out, or is he going to say, well, Dave didn't sign it, so I shouldn't be obligated to do it? What do we
I
think?
have no idea. And
Don't know.
what he decides to do is his decision. I'll respect it, honestly. I know where my work and loyalties lie, but I absolutely am not going to call out anything about dropping out if it did end up being Dave Reichert. But I don't expect Dave Reichert to drop out,
No.
regardless.
So I honestly, I don't think that we.
That's why I think at this point in time, we already know we're down to the top two candidates in this race. And so I think I hate to say it, but I don't think this endorsement is going to mean anything to either one of them. One of them's hanging their hat on the endorsement. The other one's running without
Just
it.
like,
Probably doesn't need it. However, I don't think the endorsement at this point in time, and I'm full disclosure, I'm a 100% Semi guy. Dave knows that. You know that. I love the guy. I think he's a great man. I think he's a great candidate. That's my belief, though, right? And you can have your belief, and I respect your belief, and you respect mine. That's the great thing about us, this small group of people. But I think that the people that are endorsing Semi Bird, the people that really want Semi to win this endorsement, have such high expectations of what that's going to do. And when it doesn't reach that high expectation, it's going to cause more strife than it would have helped. Does that make sense?
Well, exactly. Yeah. So what I'm trying to do is make sure that people don't think that the Republican Party is in any way, if Semi Bird does get the endorsement, they're not in any way bashing Semi by not giving him any money. They didn't give Culp any money either. Honestly, They didn't even give money to Rob McKenna until really close towards ballot droppings in the general. And so
one of the big problems with Washington State is we do our primary in August.
I know, and then September, October, we get ballots.
Yeah, it's ridiculous that we do it that way. We move the conventions up, but we should be doing this primary election in. They should be filing to vote, to run in March. We should be having our primary in late May or mid June, and that like a lot of other states do. So that's just a problem that we us as Washington citizens we need an initiative or something that forces that. But an earlier primary would be key to helping both parties shake out the dust and get a flag holder for each race and concentrate on winning.
Yeah. So let me real quick before I let you guys go, let's talk about the other guy, Bob Ferguson, who was I'd say likely going to be the Democratic nominee because he's raised so much money. What does this state look like, in your opinion, if Bob Ferguson is our governor and the Democrats do attain a supermajority in the House?
Who do you want to answer first?
Complete tyranny. Honestly, if Bob Ferguson becomes governor and there's a supermajority, I have to seriously consider if I want to move back to America. I mean, that's how seriously I feel about it, because everything that they've done. I mean, the Democrat chair is talking about how she can't wait to get a supermajority so she can go after our state constitution.
Yep, clean up the state constitution, she said.
Yep, and it's not clean up; it's absolutely reform it to their vision, and we already know what their vision is. So if that in itself doesn't tell people to, pull your head out of the sand and realize that as Republicans, this is more than support for a candidate. It's our basic survival as citizens in this state. I'm not exaggerating.
Okay. Now, can I expect that in order to keep Bob Ferguson from being the governor, after the primary, we can rally behind our candidate, no matter who that is?
Oh, yeah. Well, whoever wins the primary, we have to support them.
Yep,
that's right.
I'm confident in who that's going to be. So, I mean, I move on. But, no, it doesn't matter. It was back in
Well,
Dallas.
I am anybody but Bob Ferguson. Let me tell you that.
Well, I want to touch on that Bob Ferguson thing. You think about this. Jay Inslee's kind of like a clown or a puppet, and all the people around him, the environmentalists and all the social justice warriors, they're pulling his strings, and he's just following along because he's a follower. He's not a leader, and he's kind of a clown. He's not the smartest guy in the world, is the way I look at it. And I don't know the guy personally. However, Bob Ferguson is smart. Bob Ferguson is articulate. Bob Ferguson is the absolute opposite of what we need, because not only is he smart and articulate, but he has such skewed beliefs and skewed visions of what Washington State should be. I fear for the state of Washington, and I'm with Dave. I don't know if I'd be able to stay. I just don't know if I'd be able to stay. But I fear for the state of Washington, and I fear that the state of Washington hasn't hit rock bottom. It's like being an alcoholic, right? And I have plenty of family members, and I've got some experience there. But until you hit that rock bottom, it's hard to realize that you were that far gone. And I wonder if Washington State isn't there right now, and maybe they haven't hit that rock bottom yet. And that's what scares me the most. Is that
I'll tell you. So when we say Bob Ferguson is smart, what we mean is he's a very good politically strategic thinker. He does have good political strategies. He's not, he hasn't impressed me with his brain power running his office effectively. We have a 96% increase in murder. We're number one for car thefts in the nation. We're number one for certain property crimes in the nation.
That's what he wants, though. That's what they want.
This is what happened underneath his leadership as our attorney general. And if you guys remember Chop Chaz, he was the attorney general when that happened, when a part of Seattle was basically occupied.
And he
and he supported it. And then when in Seattle, when they tried to burn our police officers alive by setting a police station on fire, he was completely silent. That to me is not an intelligent attorney general. He's very good at suing Trump 96 times or however many times it was. And whether or not you agree that some of those lawsuits were legitimate.
And causing our taxpayers a lot of money.
Right. And whether or not you agree if some Democrats are listening, if you agree if some of those lawsuits were legitimate, many of those lawsuits were completely unnecessary because another state was doing the lawsuit and he just jumped on. And then he would claim victory when it went through. So that's really that's the big thing that I have. So we're getting ready for the convention. I'm excited to get to the convention and see what happens, and we'll discuss it again later. So predictions. Do you think the Republicans are going to stop a supermajority in the House? The Democrats from getting a supermajority in the House? Tim?
I don't think they're going to get a supermajority in the Washington State House. I question whether or not we're going to be able to win the House back or the legislature back. I think we got a chance maybe at the Senate side. But it's going to be a tough road, you guys. It's a tough road in Washington State. It's so far gone that every little correction is a good correction, but we're not going to fix it overnight. And right. We're going to need 3 or 4 elections moving forward that we win some seats in to correct this state. So,
all right, Dave,
I think we have a golden opportunity right now because, everything that Tim said is very, very true. But when you look at the initiatives that passed by overwhelming majority, that the Democrats even had to pass 3 of them in the legislature, even though they wanted to skip all 6 of them, they did pass 3. And the other 3 still have high polling numbers of people that want to support it. When you look at the fact that 57% of the signatures were independents and Democrats, that says something. That absolutely says something. And we have those on the ballot. We have a lot of good opportunity, but it's up to us. Honestly, it's up to us. I see so much. I mean, I'm just going to say it's stupidity with people with their purity and different stuff. It's like we need to set aside our own personal opinions and look at what it's going to take to win. I'll take a terrible Republican over a Democrat any day of the week at this point. I get it. I want a conservative. I want a grassroots conservative. That's what I've always been about. But in this state, it's not going to happen statewide.
No, it's not.
It's legislative districts because, some are red, some are blue. and but it's not going to happen statewide. So we need to look at who actually can win and keep Bob Ferguson out of office. That's all that matters to me.
I agree. And one other thing that we also have to consider is at the top of the ticket, Trump is not popular in the state. He is not going to win this state.
Yeah, no, that's a given. But I would say in this primary, he did a lot better than people thought he would. So what it's saying is that people are fed up and done with the Biden administration. They're fed up and done with what Inslee and Ferguson have been doing. That if we can get over ourselves and actually come together and put out a good message and get behind a candidate that can win in each of these seats, we can take back this. I mean, we're fighting against that absolutely ridiculous redistricting issue that split up Yakima County and threw some of our people out, but we're working on fixing that. And we just need everyone's support. And just honestly, what is it going to take to win? And I got no time for philosophical opinions. I want to win. So
that's where I'm at. I just want to win.
Well, you look at the ticket, though. You said Trump's at the top of the ticket, and Dave knows this as well. The reality is those initiatives are the top of the ballot. It's not
very good point, Tim.
First thing on the ballot. Those initiatives are going to be the first thing on the ballots. So those independents and even those Democrats that voted for those initiatives are already going to be primed to be a little more conservative than they usually are from the top of the ballot down. Does that make sense? And so,
that does make sense.
It is a golden opportunity that Dave talks about, and maybe I'm just a little bit of a pessimist at this point in time because I ran for office here in this state, and boy, the knives come out fast. But I hope, I pray. Hope's not a strategy. That's why I'm working my butt off, and I'm with Dave. We got to get this office back, no matter what it takes.
That is my favorite saying. Hope is not a strategy. Make sure that the people who are hoping that something gets fixed get involved and help us fix it. Because you sit back and hope, that's going to do about as much good as it's not going to do any good. I couldn't think of a good pun. But thank you guys so much for coming on. This was great. I hope Republicans find it informative.
This was terrific.
And I am hopeful. I'm hopeful that we can do this again after the convention and talk about where we're at.
Or maybe at the convention.
Anytime.
Yeah. All righty. Well, I will check. We don't have another option right now. All the other ones are gone, Tim. So
Hey, I still got to try. Still got to push. All right, guys.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on.